Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video, and today I have my 1542 Alumacraft out here, and we're going to test and talk about the differences between the 3.5 horsepower Mercury that I've had for a couple years now and this new electric outboard for me, an ePropulsion Spirit 1.0. Being a battery outboard, the differences, costs, and of course we're going to run both of these small outboards on this larger boat and see how they do and why it might make sense. Now we're going to get to probably the most important thing that people are going to care about, and that's going to be the price. This 3.5 Mercury is going to run you between $1,100 and $1,200 brand new. Not terrible, and that's going to be the same across Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki, any brand within this range. The ePropulsion, on the other hand, is going to run you around $3,000 for the setup that I have right here, which is going to be the battery and the motor itself. Yeah, that is a pretty big difference. If you can do outboard maintenance yourself, then yeah, it's only like $20 to $50 a year to maintain this outboard. And then every 3 years, we have to change the spark plug as well as the impeller. It's going to range you about $50 to $60. If you have a dealer do it, it's going to be closer to $100 for those 100-hour services and closer to $200 to $300 for those 3-year services where they do the impeller and things of that nature. So those prices will add up over time. However, it'll take a while to add up. On the other hand, this is virtually maintenance free. Yeah, there's a couple things. You have like one grease point on this this outboard and an anode if you're using it in salt water. Other thing to note is with small gas-powered outboards, they normally are still carbureted. They have small jets, and the jets dissipate the fuel as it goes into the combustion changer. They get clogged super easily if you have any type of debris in your fuel. So you can expect to have some downtime with the 3.5 Mercury, whereas you're less likely to have with the ePropulsion. I'm not saying that you won't ever have downtime, but you have way less moving parts, so it's going to be way less likely to. As a matter of fact, having owned this for 2 years, I've taken it on 5 different fishing trips, and it's worked one time. That's the nature of these small outboards. They're super finicky, and unless you use them constantly, you're probably going to have issues. This, it doesn't care whether you use it constantly or you leave it sitting for 6 months. All you got to do is plug the battery in and you're good. Now the size of these outboards are very comparable to one another. You have the ePropulsion a little bit longer due to the battery pack. If you're concerned with the length of this package, you can get a third-party battery or another ePropulsion battery for proprietary cable, connect it, and run it to either be in the back of the boat or anywhere else you want it for better weight distribution. But overall, really pretty close. As far as weights go, this battery weighs between 20 and 25 pounds. So does the outboard itself. So you're looking at 43 pounds total weight for this, but you can separate them, makes it a lot easier to carry if you can't carry a lot of weight. And the Mercury in that 40 to 45 pound range as well with fuel. Only thing is, you're going to be carrying that whole 45 pound load, whereas this, you can separate the load, which is pretty darn nice. Now, one thing I will give credit to the Mercury on in this case is the fact of where it sits on the boat. Now, this is a 15-inch shaft. Forget the exact length, but this is the shortest shaft you can get on the ePropulsion. You can see how much lower it sits. This has a cavitation plate, which is going to help push the thrust back towards you instead of going upwards. On the other hand, the ePropulsion has that bigger propeller on it because this is more concerned with torque, like most electric motors are. So without that cavity plate, it's going to be able to allow some of that thrust to rise up. That's why I tend to see these sit quite a bit lower on boats than the gas equivalent. I would love to see a cavitation plate in the future, and maybe you can add a jack plate in the back to get these things pretty high in the water just to get through really shallow stuff. However, there are still shallow water drive mode for this outboard if you need it for that application. Now the run times for these outboards are going to be 45 minutes at wide open throttle and 1 hour and 15 minutes at wide open throttle. Granted, for these small boats, you're not really going to be pushing them that hard. You're just trying to get to the general area you're going to fish in and then hop on the trolling motor, so pretty comparable. If you want to extend the runtime, yeah, you can carry some additional gas. However, if you let this thing go empty and the carb get empty, good luck getting these little small outboards to start again. They're a bit of a pain. On the other hand, the ePropulsion, you can either buy a secondary battery or just get a larger battery pack to begin with to increase your runtime. They can also include some additional options like a solar panel charger to sit on the back of the boat for sunny days. That'll also help to charge the battery. So another additional option for you as well. Compared to other 3.5 outboards, this thing has a heck of a lot of features that's going to make it really nice to use. First and foremost, you have your tiller control with an LCD screen, and this is going to show you the charge indicated in increments of 10%, which is plenty, and in the middle of that will give you a runtime. Below these two things, you're going to have your wattage going to the motor, and that's going to tell you how many watts you're currently running. This motor in real time will figure out what your runtime is going to be based on the current wattage that you're using. You also have something that's very unique, which is forward and reverse on this small outboard. You don't normally see that. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's super handy to have if you're working with technical waterways or around trees, such as brim fishing, you're working in current, or in my case as well, with jug fishing for catfish. Man, having reverse is going to make it easy not to run into trees, instead of with that little Mercury having to race around and turn it 180 degrees. We'll get into some of those features in a minute. You also have a magnetic kill cord. That's fine, it's efficient. It fills the law requirement, so good on them there. Now, what really makes this thing nice is when you go to trailer it, the tiller also comes up and goes down. So if you're like standing while you're running, you can lift this up, make it a lot more comfortable, pull it out again, and it'll push down. But on a trailer, you can get all the weight of this battery towards the boat, and that'll put a little less weight on the transom, at least out here. And all you got to do is turn this thing 180 degrees, pull the tiller out, push it down, this metal tab, lift up, locks it in place at a very high angle. You're going to be hard pressed to actually run this thing into the mud when it's in this position, and makes it super easy and stable to trailer. Whenever you get to the water, all you got to do is get that tiller set back up, let it down, twist it around, and you're ready to go. Quite that easy. Another thing you get on this outboard, which will be handy in my application, especially given the long shaft size, is it has a shallow water drive or a kick up feature. So if you do hit a submerged obstacle while running, it'll actually kick the motor up. As far as features on the 3.5 Mercury and all outboards about this size, you're going to have a pull cord to start. No electric start on outboards this small. You also get a choke for the carburetor for cold starting. And in this particular case, you have your kill lanyard and your engine shutoff built in. So you just push that red button in, that'll kill the engine. Throttle control right here, very short shaft, but smooth enough. You also have a tensioner on the throttle control if you want to change the tension. It really doesn't do anything on this particular outboard. And that's all you really get on this side. In order to go in reverse, as mentioned, you don't want to have a reverse, so you got to turn this outboard 180 and then throw your tiller back towards yourself. Not very easy to do, especially if you're sitting farther forward in a boat such as this. So when we go to the other side, we do have a vent on cap for the fuel. We have a fuel shutoff. Always run your carburetor out of fuel when possible. That's going to help give it a little bit better chance at not gumming up. You have forward and neutral, the only gear selector you have, and an oil indicator. In terms of use, this does not lock it in place, so if you do run to a submerged object, it's going to push the outboard upwards, and you can pull the outboard up all the way, push a pin in, lock it in place, and it's going to stay there. Only other final things is that you have a tensioner right here for steering. Your exhaust output is above water, so that's why you're going to hear it be a little bit louder. You have this tube for your water cooling, that's your telltale, and these two tubes are your carburetor overflow for fuel. Pretty simple design, but you're not going to be able to tell, your runtime, how much longer you got. It doesn't have any indicator for low oil. You don't have an indicator for low fuel, high heat, or anything of that nature. So those are some of the drawbacks, whereas you will get air codes with the ePropulsion in any of those instances. Having gone over everything, Let's go ahead and get both of these outboards out in the water and see how they compare to one another, especially on a larger boat. Before moving forward, big thank you to TB Nation for sending this ePropulsion outboard for us to take a look at. If you're interested in taking a look at that outboard, or you have a tiny boat build going on that you need materials for, definitely go check them out, as they are a supporter of the channel, and this is a great way to support me as well as them. You can use the coupon code BuckCreekTV, or you can use the link right here or in the description below to get 5% off as well. Now that I made it out here, got the 3.5 Mercury on first. I'm gonna go ahead and lift up on that cowling, undo the pin, and that's dropped in the water. All right, so cold starting this thing, we'll see how it goes. Choke is stuck. All right, got it in neutral. Got to undo our vent on top and make sure our gas is on. Cranked up in 2 pulls. Earlier at the house, I went ahead and made sure I got gas to the system. That took about 20 pulls. We're gonna give this a second to warm up. Once we do, we'll get this boat shoved off and troll around this lake a little bit, see how it does. Now it's had some time to warm up. As mentioned, there's no reverse. We're gonna flip it around. Let's see if we can get it going here. We got it. Flip it around real quick. It's already in gear, so we're going forward. Now we're out here in the lake. Got the engine warmed up. We're going to restart it, so set it in the restart position. Got it in neutral. It's wanting to. We're going to open it up a little bit more. There we go. Had to open up that throttle a little bit. Throw the thing into forward. It's going to quiet down a little bit. Got a little bit of thrust on that prop. And yeah, it's moving this boat at a very low speed. It's doing all right for what it is. It is going to be louder and have a lot more vibration. That's just the inherent nature of these single cylinder engines. Even with a counterbalance, you get a lot more shake through the boat and things of that nature. But yeah, pretty loud, but not awful. We're gonna go ahead and get this about half throttle. And we're just gonna run this for a little bit. Going against the wind, we're going to check out the speed at about half throttle. Got the phone right here. See what we can do. Well, the engine died, but yeah, we kept the speed of about 5 miles per hour, and that was probably between half and 3/4 throttle on this larger boat, so not too bad. As to why that engine died, though, I'm not sure. Let's see if we can get it recranked here. Well, that's not good. Huh. This outboard unfortunately died on me. I managed to get it cranked up, get out of the sun a little bit. But yeah, as mentioned earlier, one of the problems you deal with these small outboards, they can be very finicky. It's got plenty of cool water coming out. I checked that. Oil looks fine. It's definitely running a little bit on the rich side. Do that to keep the piston and cylinder a little bit cooler. And yet I still have issues. Not really sure what's going on there. But anywho, we're going to go ahead and get this one back to the launch. On the bright side, at half to full throttle, we did get a consistent 5 miles per hour on this really light John boat. So hopefully we're going to see the ePropulsion hold itself up to that and also be a bit more reliable. Well, here it is, the ePropulsion on the back of this 1542. Unfortunately, didn't get to test that 3.5 Mercury as much as I wanted to. For whatever reason, I don't know what's going on with it. I'll have to look at it when I get back to the house yet again. Well, in this case, we don't have to worry about a carburetor, choke, anything like that. Went ahead, just plugged up this data cable to the battery itself. We got a power button on display. We're going to click that on. Motor clicked on. Hopefully you could hear that beep. Got my kill switch in. And it should be a matter of just pushing the throttle forward. And we're off. It's as simple as that. No gas, anything of that nature. And just listen to how quiet this thing, there's a lot of cars in the background, but way different from that 3.5. Silent. You don't hear it. All you hear is the water coming off the engine. Now currently I'm at about quarter throttle, about 250 watts. And it says I have 5 hours of runtime. That's phenomenal. Now the biggest thing with these electric outboards is going to be immediate torque. So we're going to go from 0 to full throttle and see how that does. A little bit of time, but not long to get to full throttle. It's pushing this boat just fine. We'll get a top speed a little bit later. But yeah, this is easily going to get you from, again, where you want to go. If you're within a couple miles, easily going to be able to do it in a reasonable amount of time. As mentioned with our meter here, you can see the circle. That's our battery life for a full battery. 9 hours and 59 minutes because we're not using any power and we're using 0 watts currently. But at 250, this will take a second to catch up, but it will. We're going to see our runtime at about quarter throttle, which is pushing you at a good 3 to 4 miles per hour. And we're looking at about 6 hours of runtime. That is plenty. Just for reference, here's the speed we're going. Cruising right through this brush. Again, moving at a decent pace here considering the size of the outboard itself. A little bit of wake behind us, but silent and super smooth. Also, there's no vibrations through the boat. Not a huge deal, but it does add to the comfort of this outboard compared to the gas outboard. Now I just put this outboard into what I'm going to call its kick-up position. That means if we do hit an object inadvertently, because it does sit a little bit lower as far as the shaft length compared to that 3.5, it's going to be able to push that engine up so we don't damage that lower unit or the motor in that lower unit. So we're going to just cruise around a little bit, and if we bump into something, we ought to be good. Looks like we got an obstacle in the way, not much way getting around it, probably a fallen or sunken tree. So we're going to take it easy coming up, and hopefully this kick-up plate will just hop us right over. We'll find out. Yep. You saw how that did. It just popped that engine right over the top of that log, and we're going right on through. Now, I'm not saying this is going to replace your mud motor, but at the slower speeds, things of that nature, if you do have to hop over a log, it's going to do that just fine. Whereas with that 3.5, probably could have made it over, but not as confident in its ability. Well, I don't think there's anything else for it. I'm going to enjoy using the motor for a little bit, getting comfortable, and we're just going to run this creek for a little while and see how it performs. I've had about 2 hours of runtime on this outboard now, the same amount I've really had on that Mercury over the last 2 years, given the reliability issues I've had with it. And without a question, if you can swing it, go for the electric outboard. Yes, it is 3 times the price, but it's also 3 times as good. Yeah, both of them will get you from point A to point B if, it's working, which I had problems with that being the case. This is a lot more comfortable to use. That Mercury outboard, if I were having to go home right now, I'd have to drain the carb and stuff like that because I don't know the next time I'd use it. In this case, all I got to do is, since I'm still at 70% battery, I'm not even going to charge it until I'm ready to use it next time. It's better to keep this under 80% for long-term storage, really 60%. But yeah, it's a no-brainer. They both run around the same speed. This one has much better controls. It's much quieter, much smoother. Now in Mississippi, we don't have to worry about electric lakes, so that's not really a concern. Just overall, this is a better quality product. Also, since it has a brushless motor in the bottom, a battery up top, it's just more robust. There's less to go wrong. And in my case, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm working, throughout the week. On the weekends, that's when I get out and go and fish. I don't want to have to worry about my outboard starting or having to do test starts at the house. I want to be able to plug this battery, make sure the battery's good, do a quick test, and be off, versus the outboard, which you have to do quite a bit more to. I want something that gives me back my time, and this does. Now, I'd be asking another question. I normally have a 15 horsepower Suzuki on the back of this boat. Does this replace that? Not really. The 15 horsepower Suzuki is going to be good for running the marshes and running rivers, things of that nature. But if you're on lakes over 120 acres, go with that 15 horse Suzuki. If you're on lakes 120 acres or less, no brainer, go get this thing. Way less to be concerned about, way less to go wrong. Even like for my instance, I'm doing a lot of hunting, going on these creeks today that have a pretty decent amount of current. This thing did awesome. It would easily push me and another person, plus any game I took in this boat without a problem in that current. I'm taking this to the woods versus that 15. Much lower profile, not going to get hung up in the trees. There's a lot of reasons to like this as an outdoorsman, whether you need an electric lake or not. So expect to see this in quite a few upcoming videos for that reason. Well, that being said, it's getting a little cool out now, so I'm going to go ahead, get this boat on the trailer, and we'll finish up this video. For those worried about the range, I still have roughly 70%, and that's with running it for about 2 hours a day, so pretty darn good. But yeah, thing did absolutely phenomenal. Super quiet, comfortable to use. Rudder is great. Tiller, very well designed and ergonomic, and I love having that reverse, even if I didn't use it much today. Well, that being said, huge thanks to TV Nation for sending this thing out and allowing me to compare it to the 3.5 Mercury I do have. If you want to see more content with this particular outboard, please let me know in the comments below. I look forward to having some hunting and fishing stuff in the future. But yeah, I don't think this is going anywhere, and it did a phenomenal job even on this 1542 boat. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to share, like, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.